Hello. We are going to start our webinar on responsible research and innovation. Welcome to you all. Myself, Dilek Çetindamar, and my colleague Berna Beyhan are going to take you for 1 hour on the journey to learn about responsible research and innovation. This is brought to you by Enrich Brazil European project. And I'm trying to move for it. Hold on. I can go to the next page. Okay, now we are back. Enrich is a European project that tries to establish a network, excellence network of research and innovation centers and hubs in Brazil. It started in 2017 and it will end in 2020. It's a Horizon 2020 project that tries to establish excellence networks in China, US, and Brazil independently. In this project, there are 12 partners. 8 of them are from Europe and 4 of them are in Brazil. Together, the goal is to establish relationships between research organizations, companies, researchers across the continent, both in Brazil and in Europe. Now our subject. Before we continue with 2 key dimensions of what research and responsible research and innovation is and how it could be carried out, I want to give a few talks on why this subject is so important. Responsible research and innovation has become an important key theme in Europe in 2011. And since then, there has been lots of studies and research regarding the responsible research and innovation to bring attention of researchers to understand the invisible issues regarding the research and innovation and make it visible. At the same time, it was trying to raise the concerns with respect to the assumptions, values, and visions of the researchers so that they could be systematized by the public general stakeholders that are going to get the benefit out of the scientific research. Technology is not something that is neutral. The way it is put into use and how it is turned into the applications are going to influence the impact. So that's why it's important to pay attention what are the goals of research in any level, and the outcome is used in different ways of innovative products and services. That's why responsible research and innovation has become a critical element in recent decade, and it is going to be more and more important for the modern way of running research projects, innovative projects. Given that importance, we are trying to discuss what it is in terms of the key foundations of research, responsible research and innovation. And then later on, we want to discuss also the tools that could be applicable to manage that process of responsible research. We will give a few examples and then we will end up our webinar with a summary. The presentation is going to be available in the website of Enrich, and also all the references that are going to be discussed while we are presenting our ideas are supplied in our references section of presentation. Okay, what is responsible research and innovation? The whole idea is coming from what research projects are trying to achieve. If we think of just one example like gas, which is a source of energy, how could we call such a technology responsible? Certainly, there are some advantages that we can think of when we are considering gas in energy vis-a-vis the other alternative sources. And also we can think of some of the negatives that causes some problems. But in the end, we are weighing all these pros and cons and then come up with a conclusion and then use that technology depending on our expectations from the outcome. The responsibility or irresponsibility is to a large extent comes with a focus on future, and future is the use of technologies in the long term are going to create some sort of results that might be not are anticipated when those technologies are put into the use. That was the start. There are a few examples like that. Use of asbestos when it first came up as a technology, not necessarily the use of it and the dangers of using the asbestos was not well taken care of. But after a while, when they have realized the outcomes and the harms that it was generating, it became important to consider some alternative technologies that will replace asbestos itself, or genetically modified organisms by itself as a technology. It could be perhaps at the lab level or theoretical level, very attractive technology, but the use of them in agriculture have resulted in a number of studies that shows negative outcomes as well. So it is important to think of all research projects and innovative projects that can generate such kind of secondary and third level impact that could cause on a number of various stakeholders, and depending on the impact, consider, evaluate, assess the use of those technologies and innovations with respect to the society's overall expectations and goals. That's why it came up as a European framework program trying to establish some sort of standards. They have realized that this critical role for any research organization or any research supporting program that could supply resources to a number of research projects and innovation should take into consideration some sort of transparency concerns, interactivity, inclusivity, kind of important dimensions taken into consideration of the projects. As you can read from the PowerPoint slide as presented here, the clear definition of European Union Framework Program comes from that statement that emphasizes the acceptability, sustainability, and societal desirability of the innovation into consideration. So it becomes a responsibility for researchers and the researchers' organizations, either being for-profit. Why it is difficult to become responsible? Because one school of thought is emphasized unknown. There are so many limitations with respect to the knowledge of the technology, so it is not easy to judge about the future. The other school that is considering that it is possible to be responsible, even though we don't perhaps know everything about the future, but we can rationally plan the outcomes and try to take precautions, build the whole process of innovation in such a way that you try to anticipate, reflect, and inclusively deliberate the whole research and innovation. That's the reason the research innovation projects should take into consideration trying to find out how to run scientific experiments, think about the potential consequences of them, visions about the future, and thinking of all sorts of communication societies, focusing on real problems and the solutions that we have to solve those real life problems. That's why responsibility should think about long term and push companies and research, all the researchers that are located in think about successful chain of help to build a responsible future. When we think about responsibility, it forces us to take into consideration a few very critical dimensions like ethics. Without ethics, we can't think of responsibility. Ethics is about what ought to be, and it pushes us as researchers, any field, in any technology area, to consider some of the dimensions of utilitarianism or the rights in that particular technology. What is the justice with respect to that particular application or the common good, and what are the virtues that we should put into light so that we can develop technologies and the innovations that will be ethical. It is always good to consider some examples that will help us to visualize what this means, this kind of very subjective discussions can be really understood. In the case of the biotechnology, utilitarianism pushes us to think about what are the benefits, what are the harms that can be predicted for biotech innovations. And we can think of the profound uncertainties and sizable risks, and how can those be calculated and put into the programs when the projects are structured. When we think about the rights dimension of the ethics, we can think of, again, what are the stakeholders and what rights they have, which course of action protects those rights, and his human dignity respected in those projects. When we think of justice, then we can say which option treats everyone the same unless they differently. What are those criteria like need for accessing those treatments? In terms of common good, we can think of SARS, for example. short period of time, the illness spread it across so many countries. So that's why it's important to think of what is the common good for all the countries to come together and then develop solutions that will help to prevent such kind of potential threats. Or we can think of virtues that might be helpful in building vital projects and then coming up with solutions to the human health related problems. So standing ethically in any project result lots of benefits. Right thing to do. But not acting on ethical rules are going to generate lots of damages to companies or to organizations, brands or their staff. Consumer boycotts that can generate and they realize that the companies or the organizations are unethically conducting research. Investors downgrading valuations, legal actions that will be taken against the organization. The researchers are conducting unethically, or the fines from regulators are just a few damages we can think of, and the organizations are not running ethical research and innovation projects. That's why responsible research and innovation pushes every organization, either companies, universities, have to consider responsibility as an element to consider in the risk management. Anything that is related with society or to environment in large, we can think of a number of risks that has to be taken into consideration while we are preparing our strategic plans or operational or financial. So that's why responsible research and innovation can be taken into consideration from very early on, all the processes the company is trying to, or the research organization start on. Now, the second part of the presentation is going to focus on how to do it, right? How to do responsible research and innovation, how a researcher working in a research organization or a company can embed processes and generate actions and behaviors in the organization that are going to consider the responsible part. We can think of three streams of different tools that might be quite helpful to do. One of them is technology and innovation assessment tools. The other one is around corporate social responsibility. And the third type of tools that might be very handy goes with the specific targeted response. As you might think of SWOT analysis, one of the core strategy tool, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats framework, right? It's a tool. It has been invented so many ages ago, and still it is applicable in any sort of strategic decision. So the same is true. We believe in that all these different sets of tools might be applicable, usable with respect to the responsible research and innovation tools. We can start with the technology innovation assessment tool. To any technology project, to think about it systematically. What might be the potential primary and secondary impact on the society or environmental systems or the processes, the technologies that they are going to develop. So when we look at the evolution of technologies, and you go read some of the technology management or innovation management literature, you come across that number of impact areas that can be identified, chosen as key elements, and based on that, based on a number of criteria that are chosen by the evaluators, that from time to time run measurements that will give you input data that will highlight the degree of achievement in terms of responsibility. So this can be highly relevant for responsibility. And you, again, as I mentioned in the technology and innovation literature, there are so many studies that are describing what needs to be done. Example showing how impact can be assessed, starting with the problem definition, moving on to the technology description, and going to the societal context description, trying to establish forecast and identify the impact areas, trying to build some analysis, and then this is put into use through the post-discussion, which helps you to communicate the results achieved through such kind of technology projects that result in a number of impact in company per se, the primary one, and also the now when we look at those impact areas, we see technological, economical, institutional, social, cultural, political, or health related. Now, I am going to stop here, and I will pass the microphone to my colleague Berna to carry on with the remaining two tools. One of them is corporate social responsibility, and the other one is the specific responsible research and innovation, so that she will explain them to you in detail. Then I will come back at the presentation with a summary of our webinar and try to answer the questions if you just write them to us, so that we finish the webinar with some clarifications on the topics that perhaps are not so clear, or some interesting questions that you might have for us. Okay, now I am passing it to Berna.
Hello. Now I'm going to talk about social value, social impact, and also the tools that we can use to understand the social impact of the activities, company activities, or organizational activities. So first of all, I would like to start with the definition of the social value. Okay. Social value refers to wider non-financial impacts of programs, organizations, and interventions, including the well-being of individuals and communities, social capital, and the environment. Social impact, on the other hand, can be defined as the change that happens for people as a result of an action, activity, project, program, or policy. But of course, we can classify social impact into in different ways. For example, we can classify social impact as a positive or negative impact, or we can classify social impact as intended or unintended impacts. So also an activity or a research or any kind of research outcomes can have some immediate or direct impact on certain people, or they may also have some indirect effects on people, organizations, institutions, or other entities. Why we need to measure impact? First of all, we need to measure impact because we need to make some good have the chance to improve the there are also some key concepts in measuring impact. Of course, the first concept we can focus on is the outputs, because the outputs are very important in measuring the impact of any activity. Outputs may include the products, services, or facilities that result from an organization's or a firm's activities, or product or services or facilities from a research project. Any activity. The significant outcomes are the significant changes that directly result from any activity. But when we talk about impact, we can consider the more broader and longer term effects of a project or an organization's activity, or the longer term effects of the outcomes or outputs of a firm or of an organization. Okay, so one of the tools that we can use in the impact analysis is the stakeholder. Okay. One of the had some technical problems. Okay, so one of the tools that we can use in the impact analysis is the stakeholder analysis. Indeed, stakeholders are include individuals or any group of individuals who can affect or who can be affected from a firm's activity or from an organization activity. So we can classify stakeholders as the primary stakeholders and the secondary stakeholders. Primary stakeholders are the individuals or group of individuals who have a direct impact or who are affected directly from any activity or any research. On the other hand, there are some secondary stakeholders. They are not directly affected from the activities of a firm or organization, but they are indirectly affected, or they affect these activities in an indirect way. So the stakeholders management is a two-way relationship between the firm and its stakeholders. And also there are some, the other, the impact measurement tools for companies. It is not only stakeholder analysis, but of course the stakeholder analysis is widely used by firms to understand the impact and to also to measure the impact of these their activities. But of course, while selecting or understanding these impact measurement tools, we need to consider some characteristics of these tools, because these impact measurement tools should have a demonstrated ability to create change, and also these impact measurement tools should enable the firms to make some progress in their goals, and also these tools should be very helpful for the companies to develop, to let them organizational develop and also help them to grow. And also these tools should have some features to help companies to measure the economic benefits of these activities or projects. And of course, these tools should provide a shared learning activities for the companies. Okay. Now I'm going to talk a little about these tools of measuring social impact, because for companies it is very important to measure the social impact of activities. One tool is BACO, or Best Available Charitable Option Ratio. This tool is developed by Acumen Fund, and it is used to assess the potential social outcomes of a project, and also it is used to compare these outcomes to the outcomes of existing charitable options regarding to the social issue in the focus. And also the second tool that can be used to measure the social impact of activities or company activities is the benefits cost ratio, and this tool is developed by Robin Hood Foundation, and it calculates the collective benefits of the grants provided to poor individuals, and also it is used to calculate the cost of these grants. So in this tool, or by using these tools, organizations can easily be quantified some parameters, or the benefits of these projects. Another tool that can be used in measuring the impact of social impact of activities or projects is the social return on investment analysis. It's a very comprehensive framework, and so in this analysis, first of all, an impact map is created. This impact map shows the relationship between inputs and outputs, considering all the stakeholders, because in this tool, the stakeholders and the understanding and defining the stakeholders is very important. And in the second step, the inputs and outputs are monitorized by using some proxies, for example, some social benefits or some social inputs converted into a financial value. So at the end of this process, the social return on investment is calculated by extracting the possible negative impacts of a project from actual or expected outcomes. But of course, these, the outcomes and the negative impacts are converted into financial values. Of course, the main problem in this methodology, yes, it is a very comprehensive method, but the main disadvantage of this methodology is converting all these social inputs and social outputs into monetary values, because some social inputs or social outputs is very difficult to find, to convert in financial values. So after that, I would like to talk about some sustainability tools, because there are some global initiatives that are dedicated to sustainability or sustainability related issues. The first one is one of these global initiative is Global Reporting Initiative. It's an international independent organizations, and these organizations help businesses, governments, and other organizations understand and communicate their impacts on issues such as climate change, human rights, and corruption. The second initiative, it's a non-profit organization based in the US, is CERES, or the Coalition for Environmentally Responsible Economies. This non-profit organization promotes investment policies that are environmentally, socially, and financially sound. Another global initiative is the Institute for Sustainability. This institute offers research and consulting on sustainability management and corporate responsibility. Sustainability is an important issue, and it is recognized as one of the important issues by the United Nations. Sustainable development or sustainability was defined by the United Nations in 1987. But of course, accounting or reporting sustainability is an important challenge. So this is why triple bottom line accounting is used to expand the traditional reporting framework. And so according to these, the principles, the traditional the reporting of the framework or the reporting framework should be changed to include social and environmental issues and social and environmental, or focus on social and environmental areas, not only the financial areas. So sustainability is one of the important issues that we need to consider in responsible research and innovation, or while we are measuring the social impact of our projects. Of course, there are some other, the tools for corporations to understand or to measure their social responsibilities. The most common, corporate social responsibility tools are standards, global initiatives, and principles, and these are very helpful for companies or firms to understand and measure the social impact of their activities and social impact of the projects they carry out. Standards include many things indeed. Generally, the international organizations for standardizations create different standards for companies and related to some specific social issues. There are also some global initiatives, for example, Global Reporting Initiative, OECD Guidelines for Multinational Enterprises, or UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights. So all these, the global initiatives also are the very important tools for companies to understand their social responsibilities, and also to develop their understanding and their awareness about their social responsibilities. And also these are very good management tools for companies. There are also some the principles generated by or created by different international organizations and initiatives. These are the main guidelines for companies. But of course, these are like standards, initiatives, or the principles are some general tools for companies that they can use. But now we would like to talk a little bit about the RRI, or responsible research and innovation specific tools. So because these tools are very important for companies or for other organizations to understand and measure the impact of their activities, research activities, their innovation activities. So in that case, we can talk about two different European Union funded projects. The first one is Compass and the second one is Prisma. And these, the European Union funded projects provides us very useful specific tools to measure the impact of our innovation activities, and also these projects provide a good guideline for firms in terms of responsible research and innovation. Of course, there are many tools developed for responsible research and innovation or for similar purposes, but some of these existing tools are also used in management field or in some other fields, like stakeholders analysis, because in these analysis, stakeholders, the engagement of the stakeholders in value chain are used to analyze the impact of the projects or the activities. On the other hand, there are some other specific tools, for example, value sensitive design. This is a specific RRI tool, or responsible research and innovation tool, developed in a European Union funded project. Value sensitive design is a product of Prisma project. It's a European, as I mentioned, it's a European Union funded project, and value sensitive design seeks to provide theory and methods to account for human values in a principled and systematic manner throughout the design process. In this design, there are three different cards. The first group of cards is called the envisioning cards, and these cards deals with the moral or ethical imagination around the design and development of the new technology. The second group of cards is called security cards, and these cards especially related to include the issues related to security. For example, how these security issues influence the design and development of new technologies. There are also metaphor cards. Indeed, metaphor cards are also useful for design thinking or creating new products. So it provides, or the metaphor cards provides, a toolkit for supporting generative metaphorical design thinking around the technology or around the new technology. Another tool that can be, this is very specific to the responsible research and innovation. Indeed, this is B impact assessment. This is a free tool, and it's also a confidential tool for companies, for firms or organizations. It's a credible tool, and a company can register to this website or register for this tool, and then it can use this tool to measure its impact, or the impact of its activities on workers, community, environment, and customers. So it's a very confidential tool, and now currently more than 50,000 companies or businesses use this free and confidential tool. So it's a website, and it's a web-based tool indeed. So companies can be registered there and provide some information about their activities, and at the end of this process they can measure the impact of their activities on workers, community, environment, and customers, or the stakeholders. In the responsible research and innovation, gender inequality is an important issue because we need to, for responsible research and innovation, we need to ensure the equality, gender equality in the workplace. So another, the toolkit is from Australia, because in the Australia, the questionnaire is run every year to understand the gender equality in workplaces. So the Australian government distribute a questionnaire including 17 questions relating to different areas in the firms, and one of these areas is related to gender inequality, and also it includes some questions about, for example, policies about gender inequality in firms, policies for sex-based harassment in companies or workplaces, or also it includes some questions about the family or domestic violence on women. Another tool that can be used by the companies for responsible research and innovation is the stage gate model or stage gate method. It's also used in other fields of management or governance, but it is also useful for understanding or measuring social impact of the company activities. Indeed, this tool includes different stages of innovation, and it helps the firms to manage the innovation process from idea to launch. So in this method, there are some innovation stages, or innovation stages is divided into different stages, and each stage has activities and also deliverables. So between these stages, there are some gates, and when the company reaches a gate, the previous activities and the previous deliverables should be evaluated and should be assessed by the company, and a decision to pursue or stop the innovation process should be made. So these gates are very important moments for companies to evaluate the economic and non-economic impacts of the innovation steps, and then the companies can easily decide whether to pursue a project or an activity or not by using this innovation. Another tool is the Matters Principles of Responsible Innovation. It is also a product of a European Union project. So in that case, the responsible innovator try to understand some possible impacts of innovation process and also negative impacts of the innovation process. And of course, the aim is to reduce the negative impact of the innovation process. Another tool that can be used by firms is the sustainability method selection tool. This is a website. Indeed, it's a web-based tool. So this is especially for sustainability issues. For example, a company can determine some goals to tackle in terms of increasing the sustainability of the activities or to reach some sustainability goals. Indeed, this tool helps the company to understand what kind of methods can be used to reach these sustainability goals. Now I will talk about some, examples or good examples of responsible research and innovation. Our first example is from European Union. It's a European Union funded Human Brain project. This is the aim of this project is to create an ICT-based scientific research infrastructure for brain research, cognitive neuroscience, and brain-inspired computing. all from different parts of the Europe, approximately 100 research institutions involved in this project. So this for this project, it is where the ethical and the societal issues is very important for this project, and a specific part of this project is allocated for these ethical or the societal sub-projects, and also a new an ethical advisory board is established for or formed for this project. It's a good example of responsible research and innovation. And our second group of examples are related to the code of conduct. Indeed, our first example is from Brazil. Sao Paulo Research Foundation developed and published Code of Good Scientific Practice in 2011. Indeed, this document aims to implement solid and deeply rooted ethical research integrity in the scientific community of the state of the Sao Paulo. It aims to achieve this purpose throughout 3 actions. One of the actions is the education, the second action is prevention, and the third one is related to the investigations and the section of these, the scientific misconduct. So this document provides a good guideline for scientific activities. It explains what is the scientific misconduct, and also it provides guidelines about the responsibilities of the research organization. Our second example is from Turkey, L'Oréal Turkey. L'Oréal also declares the company principles about responsible innovation, and the company declares that in innovation projects, the company is respectful to the customers, to human and environment, and also it guarantees that all the ethical guidelines are followed by the company during the innovation process. Our third example is from the nanotechnology field. Indeed, I'm going to give 2 responsible research and innovation example from nanotechnology field. The first one is Go Nano. Go Nano is a European Union funded project, and it is coordinated by the Danish Board of Technology Foundation. Indeed, it is this project indeed enables the co-creation between citizens, civil society organizations, industry, researchers, and the policymakers across Europe to align some future nanotechnologies with some societal needs and expectations. So the goal of the project is to co-create products and services with civil society and individuals, citizens, and other, the stakeholders. And this project focuses on 3 sectors: food, health, and energy, or the nanotechnology usage in food, health, and energy. And for this aim, the citizen workshops are conducted across Europe in different cities in Europe. And so in this project, different stakeholders with different values, needs, and concerns are enabled to engage in the innovation process. Again, the European Union funded project in Turkey, one of the partners is Turkey, institutions in Turkey. In that case, the nanotechnology usage in hospitals for the hygiene purposes is aimed. So this project is also very good example of responsible research and innovation, because the engagement of the different parts or different social institutions, different social groups, different industry, or the representative from the different industries is achieved by the project people. And also gender equality is another purpose or another principle that can be that is considered by these, in this project. And also the science education, or fostering the education for future needs of the society, and some ethical issues and open access to the results of these publicly funded research project or the outcomes of this research project also used and that supported in these projects. So we can say that it's a good example of the research, responsible research and innovation. So now Dilek will continue and summarize the presentation.
Hello, it was very hectic 1 hour. I am sure that we are all getting tired. To just summarize, it is clear that innovative products and services hold great potential to improve the lives of consumers and solve societal challenges. However, uncertainties inherent to research, development, and innovative activities. That's why dealing with uncertainties is in a responsible manner is key to staying competitive and bringing innovations to market. That's why responsible research and innovation is an important issue that can help us to establish such kind of a ethic, professional code of conduct that will help us to bring in responsible research and innovation to society. Now, I am sure that there are so many things that raise your concerns, your interest. I am sure that there are some references in our webinar that you can look at. Clearly, research, responsible research and innovation is becoming a mainstream. There are now societies that are trying to push for industries, professions, and to take attention to the cause of ethics and try to become responsible so that the technologies that are developed become responsible the way they are developed, the way they are put into the use. So I hope this presentation was helpful. There are all these various references indicated here. You can download the presentation after this webinar, and if you have any questions, you can also reach us through our email addresses. Thank you very much. I'm looking now for the questions, if there is anything that has been addressed to us right now, and I see that there are no questions. So thank you very much for listening to us. Have a nice day.